Hi everyone, this is Paul Loves Read, and as you know in this channel, it's all about spreading the love and joy for literature. And we hope our little channel helps you find the right book for you. Today is going to be a special episode because I wanted to share some of the books I've read that made it to the New York Times 100 most notable books for 2022. So if you haven't seen it yet, New York Times released their notable books for 2022 about last week of November. And throughout December, they're going to release a more detailed or an in-depth look of per genre type best books. So before I get into the books, I have to say that these, at least the 6 that I've read that made it to the list, each and every one of these books are unique and kind of has something special to offer. And maybe that's why it made the list. I don't know. I don't know about the rest of the books in the list, but these 6, they are very varied and unique on its own. So I'm gonna share them with you and let's see where this takes us. First one is called Checkout 19 by Claire Louis Bennett, and it is fiction, and it's quite the unique book.
What makes it unique?
What makes this book unique is the storytelling format. It is a first-person perspective about a young girl telling her story, her life story, but you as the reader, you can't really tell from her stories which ones are real and which ones are imagined, because our dear protagonist is obsessed about books and about writing. So she tells her stories through imagined stories, and it is brilliant that way because it's a bit disorienting as the reader. It's a bit disorienting, but it makes you curious. It makes you want to move forward and kind of find out what is going on in this girl's head. And I think that's why it's in the notable list. It's not an easy read, okay? The way it's written is very fluid and seamless, that her imaginations or her imaginings are connected to her real life. To quote one of the reviews that I've seen, it is half in reality and half in imagination. And I think that's the beauty of this book, and that's why it made it into the notable list, because you don't really see that format anywhere. And if you do, probably it's more confusing than enjoyable, but this one is enjoyable. It's a very smart book. I say it's a smart book because the stories that she will tell you is different and varied, and the words that she uses, the author herself, the words that she uses, I can guarantee that you will learn quite a few new words when you read this book. Next book is called Case Study by Graeme McCrae Burnett. The author is actually a Booker Prize shortlisted author from his previous work, and this book is very unique. I enjoyed this. I immensely enjoyed this. So this is a classic example of your unreliable narrator format, but beyond the unreliable narrator, it's really more of an unreliable author. The author, Graeme McCrae Burnett, he wrote this book, he wrote this novel as if it's a memoir, as if it's a real story, as if it's a real story. And I think that's his style, really. It's not his first venture into that format. But yeah, what made this special is that he mixed the characters in the book. There are almost historical references into the past, and he mixed it with fiction. Therefore, the reader would think that, hey, maybe this really happened. Maybe this person was really a real person back then, but he's not. And that's what made it brilliant for me. So that's one part of it, right? The second part of it is the story itself. It's about a young woman wanting to expose a fraud because she believes that the doctor, psychologist / psychiatrist is a fraud. And she wanted to reveal to the world that he is a fraud. So what she decided to do was to check herself in as a patient, and she faked her personality. Not a spoiler. She faked her personality so that she could be one of the doctor's patients. In so doing, she essentially invented another identity for herself. So that's the brilliant part of it. Like the whole thing, the whole novel, the whole book, the point of the author is that it's about identity. It's about forgery. It's about what's real and what's not real. There's a touch of mental illness. There's a touch of kind of quote unquote historical fiction. There's a touch of fakery and mistrust and all that, and identity, and all of that in this, relatively slim book. So there you have it. Another one of the notable books. Another challenging read. So there you go. It's not an easy read. Hindi naman sobrang hard. Not too hard, but not easy. Okay, next up we have a very popular book. It's called The School for Good Mothers by Jessamine Chan. I think I actually already have an in-depth review episode for this one, so we'll give you the link to that. But yeah, so this made it to the list as well. No surprise there that it made it to the list. So in a nutshell, this book is about sci-fi / dystopian type genre, about how the state defines how to be a good mother, or what makes a good mother, versus how the mothers really feel about what defines being a good mother. So it's dystopian because when you put the responsibility, or even establish an institution or an organization to define something that can be very, very personal, like motherhood, and decide that, okay, this group of people would know better than me on how to be a good mother to my children, that immediately becomes a controversy. That immediately becomes problematic. And here in this book, Jessamine Chan, the author, pushed it a little further, and it turned into a sci-fi / dystopian genre, but also very, very carefully and thoughtfully written, very tenderly, I should say. Like, very balanced siya. It's not just about the horror stories, or it's not about the dystopian thing. It's really not about that. It's really about being a mother and how much a mother will sacrifice to care for her children. And it's very extreme, and it's relentless. But it's true, though. It's true that not all, and I recognize that, we all recognize that not all mothers are good mothers, okay? There are mothers that can be better. There are mothers that are not good mothers, but there are also superhero moms. So there's varying degrees, but that's the point. How do you even define it? Where do you even define it? And even more controversial is who defines that. And I think that's the brilliant thing about this book, because that's the crux of it. Like, do you really want your government defining how you should be as a mom, as a parent? And if you say yes, they would put rules around it, and they would put metrics around it, and they would put, regulations around it. And at the end of it, they would have the right to take away your child from you because you don't pass those checklists. This could be something else too. It doesn't have to be just about motherhood. If you talk about an institution imposing regulations on things that they probably don't know much about, or should probably not put their fingers into. That, there you have it. A lot more to say about this for sure. Check out my in-depth review on that one. But no surprise that this made it into the list. Quite a relentless book. And when I say relentless, it is really just heavy. It's one of the heavier ones I've read. But yeah, it's a very good one. The next one is called Trust. I just recently finished this. Trust by Hernan Diaz. So it's called Trust. It is about the financial boom of Wall Street in the US back in the 1920s-ish. Yeah. And it is obviously not in the present time, diba? May pagka historical fiction-ish. You will recognize names, a few names, popular names here, if you're very familiar with US finance history, and really that economic boom of the United States back in the 1920s, when everybody had money, everybody was, wanting a new life, and everybody finally recognized how money and trade and stocks work. What makes this book unique is essentially it is 4 books in one. It is a collection, or I shouldn't say collection, it's a consolidation of 4 stories from 4 different perspectives, talking about essentially, supposedly, the same thing, but they have very different perspective. So you as the reader, you don't quite know what is the real story. And I think that's why the title is Trust. For two things, for two reasons. Trust because and the author alluded this in the book. Trust because money is essentially ideas. It's nothing. When you don't see money, as in paper money, it's just numbers on the screen. It's just numbers on a ledger. It's just it's just words that people believe that this is the value you put in this, in this stocks or material or whatever. Money, Wall Street, finance is built on trust. People's trust, consumers' trust to their banks, the banks' trust to the government's trust that the banks will do their jobs, and so on and so forth. But the real money, you don't see it, it's just an idea. So that's my theory, at least my theory, why the title is called Trust. The second theory, and again my theory, why the title is called Trust is because you as the reader, you have to, at some point, you have to decide which of the four stories do you trust enough to really see the whole story. Because like I said, it is told from four different perspectives about the same thing, but each of them are telling it differently. So you as the reader, having the advantage of seeing the bigger picture because you see all four perspectives, you get to decide, I wonder which among the four was actually telling the truth. And that's when you need to build the trust, you as the reader. So it's brilliant. And again, no wonder it made into the notable list. It is fictional. It is fiction. And the center of the book, the central story of the book, revolves around this supposedly brilliant, famous, well-known billionaire who made his money from the stocks, from the stock market, from trading, from Wall Street, essentially. And that's the whole book. I don't know if I made you curious enough with that. Not your usual storytelling format, definitely not. Again, not a totally easy read. And I think siguro most in the notable list are not an easy read. It has a bit of a challenge to it, but the payoff is good. So, okay, we're down to the last two books, and I'm very excited about these two. I'll start off with The Candy House by Jennifer Egan. I think I already have an in-depth review of this one. Check it out. But yeah, so this one made it into the notable list as well. It's about a technology that has the ability to record and save your memories from your past. That's one. And it also has the ability to upload your memories into the cloud so that other people can see them and feel them too. So, yes, it's sci-fi. And it is called, ano ba yun? It is called, ayun, Own Your Unconscious? Yeah, it's called Own Your Unconscious. So it's a very compelling technology, even if you imagine it in the real world now, here with us. Even if you imagine it now, it's I don't know, it opens up a lot of questions, right? A lot of controversial should you not, why questions. It would have a lot of, I would think, positive application, but also negative and not so nice applications. And again, just like with any technology, and I say it also all the time, technologies are agnostic. They're neither good nor bad. It really depends on how you apply it as a human being. So there's that in the book too. I am recommending this book because I thought it was well written, well executed for its format. I am also recommending it because the supposed fictional technology is just so provocative. Like, honestly, when I was reading the book, it got me thinking, what if I could access my past memories? Would I want to? Quick questions that popped into my head was, if this were real, would I go for it? And if I would go for it, why would I? If I would go for it, would I share it to the world? Would I share my memory to the world? If somebody would come up to me and say somebody could benefit from looking at your memories, you could probably save a life if you could share your memory, would I? I'm not going to answer. But yeah, those are just some of the questions that would tickle you as you read the book. Technically, the storytelling format of the book is different. It is episodic. It doesn't follow the traditional narrative style. It is told almost like a short story collection related to the technology that I just described. And more than that, though, what made it extra special is because unlike a short story kasi is independent on its own, right? This one is building onto the previous story. So there is still kind of a continuation of sorts, but not really because each story is a different story. But then when you pull back, you see it as one whole. So it's really like watching a TV series, right? I mean, each episode of a TV series is a story. It's a little story on its own. However, you will not understand episode 5 if you missed out episode 1 to 4. So it's like that in this book. So if that makes it easier to imagine what an episodic novel would look like, that's exactly how it is. Yeah. And I think that's why it got into the notable list. So Jennifer Egan does it again. She is actually a Pulitzer Prize-winning author, by the way. Okay, moving on to the next and last book that I'm gonna share that made it to the 100 notable list, and by far my favorite of the bunch. No surprise here. It's called Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. I have an in-depth review of this book. Go check it out and watch me gush over this book for 15 minutes. So, yeah, I loved it. My God, I don't know how to share this quickly, but this book is about two very brilliant, compelling, lovable, likable, very relatable protagonists. We follow their story. We follow their life from 12 years old, from childhood up to their mid 40s or late 40s. And both of them are gamers and they are game designers. And they take us into their world of gaming, their highly competitive and highly stressful world. And the stories obviously spans decades. And the story shows that. It has references to different times of the decades, and it has references to different pop culture events, different political events, different social-political issues, economic issues. So it's all there with the two protagonists kind of telling those stories. So it's just beautiful. It definitely has everything in here for everybody, for every type of reader. If you are, let's say, a sci-fi reader, you'll find it here because they're gamers. They think like that. If you are passionate about design, oh, you will love this, absolutely, because they are game designers, right? If you like an angle of a love story angle, it's definitely here. A friendship angle, it's definitely here. Even music and art, friendship, family, death, it's all here. So it's and it's amazing how the author managed to write and tell the story, so many stories in so many angles, diba? But made it cohesive, because at the center of everything, there's so many things happening at the periphery, but at the center of it, you will always have Sadie and Sam to hold on to, and you will not get lost in the story. If you find it in the bookstore, get it, buy it. I encourage you to buy the physical copy because it has a nice cover. This cover. The cover has meaning. You'll find out in the book. The title has meaning, deeper meaning. You'll find out when you read the book. See, little things like that, little details like that just makes it, crunchier and more worthwhile to read. So this one goes under my shelf of definitely something you will read again. That's another thing. I like reading author's notes and author's acknowledgement after reading the book. You should always do that. So Gabrielle Zevin did hers here at the back, and more than her message of gratitude and acknowledgement to the people who helped her, she also spent time into sharing what inspired her to write it and where are the places, the real places that she borrowed and she used in the story, and her inspiration for the art, the music, and so on. So it just gives you that extra layer of appreciation for the story, because you know that it is also rooted into reality. So that's just brilliant. So like I said, You could watch me gush over the book for an hour. I'm not gonna stop talking about it until my director tells me cut. And there you have it. All these 6 books made it to the 100 notable books of New York Times for 2022. And I could totally understand how and why they made it to the list. All of these are great reads, and we hope this episode helps you find the right book for you. Thank you.